listening to us or watching us here throughout this college football season so far, something you've heard us say in the past is no sleepy Saturdays. Excuse me, I can't even get the words out of my mouth because I'm so excited that we have entered the month of October and we have another slate, John, that I feel like some people might be sleeping on. It's just... Yes, you got the big Alabama Vanderbilt game, Diego Pavia and all that. You got Miami and Florida State, but we got some other fun ones too here that we will get to. And just the overarching theme, one of the commandments of this program is no sleepy Saturdays. I'm looking forward to what should be another just awesome, action-packed, filled Saturday of college football.
Yeah, this was the weekend last year. Any of our listeners out there in serious relationships with their significant others or what have you, I had gotten engaged just a little bit before then, and I circled that weekend as like, okay, we're going to take our engagement pictures that weekend. I think Georgia was either off or not really playing anybody, and there were seemingly no big games that weekend, and that, of course, turned into the Tennessee-Arkansas weekend. It turned into Vandy versus Alabama. A couple other crazy games happened in that one. So, fade at your own risk as far as like your apple picking dates are concerned, because that's always when the crazy stuff happens. So even if on paper here we may not be looking at the same blockbusters that we were a week ago, I think we're going to be sitting down on Monday being like, wow, holy crap.
So here's what we got for you guys today. As always, we will try to predict some headlines, give our thoughts on what we think everybody will be talking about at the water cooler come Monday morning in college football. We're going to do some deep dive breakdowns into this Texas and Florida game, or as ESPN is calling it, the latest installment in the Mannings versus Florida. There's a whole expose on that going on ESPN right now. We will dive into the Vanderbilt-Alabama game. We will dive into Miami and Florida State as well. We'll do some other quick hitters too across the country. And then finally, we got some best bets for you. But before we do any of that, I do just want to say, if you are watching or listening, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and leave a review too if you would. That would help out as well. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. All it does is help us here as we try to grow this show. You can find us on any of those platforms, whether it's YouTube, Apple, Spotify, at College Football Tailgate. We are on Twitter, at CFB Tailgate 25, on TikTok, at CFB Tailgate. And, of course, you can find John and I individually. If you want to just yell at one of us, you can find John at Johns_Tailgate and me at Dan Watkins Radio. But anyways, John, I think it's time. Let's get right to it. Let's start predicting some headlines here. What do you got? What are we going to be talking about when Week 6 is in the books?
Leading us off, I got Texas 2-bits. 2-bits is obviously like I don't fully understand it, but I guess it's a thing that the Gators do. There's always a Mr. 2-bits that comes onto the field with a funny tie and stuff. And then
I didn't know about this.
Marrying that with the Texas 2-step, I thought it was catchy. But ultimately, the headline itself may not make a ton of sense, but I think Texas just kind of stomps Florida and stomp in the swamp. I think might have been a better
that
one.
Might be the line. That might be the headline.
Okay, we're going to take that one. The second header is Texas 2-bits, and I just we'll break this down in depth. But boy, the way that Florida's offense is trending right now versus the way that Texas's defense is trending, I think that portends poorly for the Gators in this spot. And then my next one, the Aggies survive a scare. I think that Miss State is going to be ready to roll in that one, and I think that they are just not to be messed with. I think that Jeff Levy's kind of got things going, Blake Shapen and everybody. I'm liking this Miss State team. I believe they are 5-0 against the number thus far this year, and they're getting 14.5. I think it gets a little bit uncomfortable at Kyle Field for the Aggie Nation on Saturday night.
That's a weird line. That's sitting there at 14.5. It has not moved all week. So you're getting 2 touchdowns and a hook there. I kind of agree with you there. I like this Mississippi State team a lot. I know they just lost last week to Tennessee, but they kind of just shot themselves in the foot in that game, allowing 2 defensive touchdowns there for the Vols. Yeah, that's an interesting spot, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that one here before we end the show here. I got a couple for you as well. I'm going to go right back to that Texas and Florida game. I'm going with Longhorns offense rises from the swamp. Little wordy, but I like stomping the swamp a little bit better. Maybe we'll just can we co-author that one? That's like the dual byline there.
Good with that.
All right, very good. I think Texas's offense coming off the bye is going to figure something out here. They better. and we'll talk more about this as we break this game down. Like, after the way Arch was acting in that game against Sam Houston State, like, show us something here against Florida, because this defense is legit. As much as we make fun of Florida and their offense, I feel like it's more so that their offense is the problem, where Florida's defense, if Texas can hang some points on them, I do think that's definitely some reason for optimism if you're a Longhorns fan going forward. Next up, and I have a lot of thoughts on this, and we'll get to this when we talk about this Alabama-Vanderbilt game, but Bama Slayer vanquished. I like, the closer we get to this game, like, I'm starting to talk myself more and more into liking Alabama, and liking Alabama pretty comfortably in this one. Like, this is still Vanderbilt we're talking about. There is no way that Alabama is going to let Vandy pick them off in 2 years in a row. I mean, I know Nick Saban's not there. I know this is a completely different era. Pavia's been awesome, don't get me wrong, but Alabama's going to be ready to go for this game after what happened a year ago. So I got Bama Slayer vanquished as my second headline.
Yeah, there's no sneaking up this time around. Like, you played that card last year, and I think that Vanderbilt is a better team on balance this year than it was a year ago. But by that same token, like, you got to go to Tuscaloosa. That's just a really hard place to win. It's a totally different story than winning at home, especially early in DeBoer's career, the road was unkind to the Tide, and you know, that Vanderbilt game was the first one that really proved that. So this time around, yeah, we're going to dive into it a little bit more, but I fear that the era of good feelings about Vanderbilt is about to come crashing down Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I got one more for you. Just one word: ludicrous! Exclamation point. We'll throw that as a headline. I say that because Ludacris is going to be performing at 9 a.m. at Chapel Hill before that Clemson and North Carolina game, because that game has gotten bumped up to the noon time slot because those two teams are just both such disasters at this point. And I think that just train wreck will probably continue in one way or another. I mean, Clemson could win this game by 3 touchdowns, and that wouldn't surprise me. But I think the highlight of the day from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, will be the Ludacris concert at 9 a.m. as they get ready for kickoff there. So, yeah, that's what I got for my headlines of the weekend.
I love Ludacris. I think he is a Georgia fan, but yeah, interesting turn of events for him to. I don't know how many 9 a.m. shows he's played before.
This might be the first.
Are there some lines as to like the actual start time? Like, I'm sure the good people of Chapel Hill want him started bright and early, but I could see him taking the stage at like 11:30 or something.
Right, like right before kickoff. Like, could you imagine being his manager or his talent rep or agent or whatever, and just be like, so, don't do anything too crazy Friday night because you're going to be performing at 9 a.m. Saturday morning on Chapel Hill because these two teams stink.
Oh, and then you have to talk to him when he's wearing those like giant like rubber fit like Hulk hand type of things. You know, you're real scared to break bad news to him. Terrible.
Right. Like that, like, I'm sure going into the season, like, execs were probably thinking, like, I'm sure game day had this game circled.
Yeah.
Right? Dabo at Chapel. Like, if North Carolina was actually, like, somewhat a coherent football team, and if Clemson was living somewhat up to their expectations, like, this would have been a huge spot to Saturday for Clemson, North Carolina, but things have just gone in the complete opposite direction, and now poor Ludacris has to get up instead of get back at 9 a.m. So
great pull.
There we go. All right, very good. Let's get right into it, and let's start talking about some of these games. Texas heads to Florida. John, the Longhorns favored by 6.5 here. This did open at 7. It's kind of ticked back to within a touchdown. The total sitting at 41.5, as you so eloquently put it in our rundown. Ew. But this game to me is just, show us something, Arch. Like, don't do what you did against Sam Houston State, the way you acted, like, and the Longhorn fans in our mentions and our comments saying, well, what's he supposed to do? He just scored a touchdown. He just drove him in there and all that kind of stuff. All right, now you're playing a real school. We make fun of Florida a lot, but that's more about their offense and how they just don't really know what they're doing, and Lagway's been a mess. The defense is still pretty good. I want to see something from Arch Manning here this weekend.
I do too. I think that You're kind of going on blind faith a little bit here at this point with the Texas offense. Yeah, they've had a couple of impressive performances against teams that are, almost FCS level in
High
some
school.
respects. Yeah, I mean, it's just come and like the sheer amount of talent that they have on that offense, even if it's been a little bit dinged up. CJ Baxter dealing with injury, Emmett Mosley, the big transfer receiver, hasn't really gotten going yet. There are those elements involved, but I think this Texas offense, I don't want to quite call it a sleeping giant, but I want to call it, a sleeping guy at least. I think that they're going to look better and more competent as the season goes on. I think this is a great way to kind of get the heat off of them from an offensive perspective, because that's been the story with this Longhorns team is everyone is still hanging on to that miserable performance offensively that they had up in Columbus, and there's been no opportunity for them to kind of deodorize that. This is the spot to do it, and I'm gonna kind of spin this one to you, because we've seen some coaches get fired. If Florida really gets drubbed here, is this the end of the Billy Napier time?
I don't know. I'm still I feel like they just kind of let him play it out, unless this thing just goes so far off the rails later on that they're just getting, pancaked basically every single week. But as you do bring that up, though, I do have questions what kind of fight level is Florida going to have in this one? Let's say Texas jumps out to a quick 14-0 lead. Do they just pack it in, or are they going to keep fighting all the way to the end here? Because it does feel like this thing is starting to teeter.
And I hate to be the talk about another man's job podcast, but I do feel like we've done a good job of almost being Coach Grim Reapers this year. The Sam Pittman last weekend, we tweeted out after the Virginia Tech Old Dominion game, you got to fire Brent Pry, right? And then the next morning he gets read his marching papers, everything like that. So I have it on my radar that this could be the end for Billy Napier, and Florida just kind of kickstarts its coaching search and maybe gets ahead of it before some other bigger jobs open up over the course of the rest of the season. I think I couldn't quite find the odds on this on DraftKings. The lowest you could get for a team total on Florida was 11.5. I think they're on shutout watch. I think that this Texas defense it's under-discussed how good it is. I think it's them and Ohio State as the two best defenses in college football. Defense travels. I think that this offense is really sputtering when it comes to Florida. It wouldn't shock me if they actually just got shut out here.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So when I'm looking at this game and I'm stacking these two teams, Texas and Florida, right, they both come in off of the bye, and they're heading in totally different directions, where when I look at the Texas offense, they're going to figure it out at some point. There's too much talent. There's too much brain power there with Sark for them not to figure this out. On the other side, I don't know if DJ Lagway and the Florida offense can figure it out. Florida, here, you're going to like this. Florida is the lowest scoring offense in the SEC so far this season, averaging 22 points per game. Now, you take out that week 1 game against Long Island, they're averaging 11 points per game since then. That is so bad. And this Texas run defense is elite. Jaden Baugh is not going to have a good day on Saturday. And this is going to be in DJ Lagway's hands, and I have zero confidence in him being able to pull off some big plays here and keeping Florida close. And that's why I really like Texas to cover this number here. You're giving me Texas within a touchdown. Yeah, give me the Horns -6.5. That's going to be on my card this week.
I like that as well. And one other stat note to throw out there: this is a matchup of the number 13 and number 15 quarterbacks in the SEC in terms of QBR. That's out of 15. So Arch 13 and Lagway 15 thus far. The computers, SP Plus has this Texas 26, Florida 17. FEI has it Texas 27. Florida 15. So low totals. I think SP Plus would have the over in this
Slightly.
one. Both of them just I'm either staying away from the total or going under, but more so confident in Texas covering this number, especially now that we're at 6.5.
Yeah, like I said, I want to see, for Arch's sake, do something this weekend. Ball out. Have a nice, flirt with 300 total yards, maybe 3 touchdowns, 2 passing, 1 rushing, something like that. Would really get those vibes going, because next week is Red River. And this whole thing, like, you need to have some good vibes going in against that Oklahoma defensive front next week. So I really want to see something from March Manning here.
No doubt.
All right, moving on. We'll stay in the SEC. The game I think that's getting the most attention this weekend. Vanderbilt heads to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. John, the line here is down to 10.5. This is like, it's going crazy. So over the summer, this thing was at like 22 and a half in favor of the Tide. It reopened Sunday morning at 14. It has since moved down to 10.5 here in favor of Alabama, as it just seems like people are pouring more money on Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt. Everybody loves the narrative of the Bama Slayer, Diego Pavia, what he did last year, beating Alabama. Yes, he's knocked off Auburn a couple of times throughout his career. Like, he has just single-handedly caused so much mental anguish to the state of Alabama that people are just like, it feels like people are almost like automatically just assuming like he's going to do it again. And I'm looking at that, and I just think this thing's getting way overblown. Like, you look at the talent level of these two teams, Alabama is still way up here. They're not what they used to be, way up crazy, but they're still way up here, and there's a sizable gap. And I think that Alabama is going to be able to have their way on Saturday.
I think, yeah, them being at home and, having like a month to get into this new era with Ty Simpson and the offense, I just think that they look so good offensively right now. It's just hard to bet against them. I think just some metrics here. Vandy actually rates very well in this respect. They're number one in offensive drive success rate, and Alabama's number 4. But Bama's been really good at these drives that make it all the way to the opposing team's 20-yard line. Neither defense has been great so far by the metrics, but Bama's still markedly better, sitting around like 40th overall, whereas Vandy's somewhere in the 60s. And yeah, I mean, I think ultimately you kind of hit the nail on the head where it's Diego Pavia versus like the entire Crimson Tide, and that's just I favor Goliath over David in that matchup. I don't think that lightning strikes twice, and we're seeing the enthusiasm for Vandy, and I understand it. I mean, what's more fun than Vandy like being good? Like, it's so out of the blue, especially in this particular era. Pavia, like, how do you not root for that guy? But I think we've kind of crossed a certain threshold where like it's now Johnny Manziel is kind of establishing
He's going to be
himself.
there.
Yeah,
he's going to be there.
And let me tell you, the natives are not particularly happy about this because there's a bar in T-Town called Two Dimes, and they are hosting Manziel as like the guest of honor, I think on Friday night, something like that. And people are very peeved about that. That's what happens when you let the Yankees take over your town, Tuscaloosa, because they're going to make decisions like that run afoul of the locals. So will be interesting to see the get in numbers for Two Dimes this weekend. But I don't know. I love Johnny Manziel. I think you and I, same age, couple of fraternity guys in the early 2010s. Like, no one was more representative of like this guy goes hard than Johnny Manziel. But
sure,
having him in your corner in 2025 feels like he hasn't really grown up enough. I don't know. Like, he's not the guy I want to be attached to me right now. It's like him and Theo Vaughn are like Pavia's guys now. It's like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's a little weird, but like I also went back and looked because like everybody remembers, right, when he did go into Tuscaloosa and won that game back in 2012. So I was like, well, did he beat him again? He didn't beat him again, right? So I had to go look back and make sure he did not. So the next year in 2013, Bama went to College Station and they ended up winning that game 49-42. Manziel had a couple picks in that game, but that game, the final score made it look much closer than it was. Alabama was up 3 touchdowns in the second half in that game, and I can easily see that being the case here again this coming Saturday. Like, Alabama's not going to be sleeping on you after what you did to them last year. You knocked them off. It's not going to happen again. And I went back and looked, John. Do you know the last time a quarterback beat Alabama in 2 straight years?
No, not even. I don't even have a guess.
It's some kid from Auburn. So here we go. Brandon Cox from Auburn beat Alabama 3 straight times in the Iron Bowl from 05 to 07. So that was Saban's first Iron Bowl, the last game. that he did that. So that was a long time ago, a lifetime ago, generations ago that this happened. Like Manziel never did it. None of those quarterbacks from those LSU teams ever did it. I know Ole Miss beat them back-to-back years about 10 years ago now, but those were different quarterbacks in those times.
Bo and Swag.
Another Bo Wallace mention. Now that's been that just seems to be the theme this week that we've brought him up on back-to-back shows now.
He's
but yeah,
important.
He is, and but. It just doesn't happen. It would be legit historical if Vanderbilt pulled this off. And as I look into these numbers and these metrics, and we talk about how Vanderbilt's offense has looked really good, yeah, they've put up big point totals against Charleston Southern, Utah State, Georgia State, Virginia Tech team that was in shambles right before they fired their coach, and they did beat South Carolina, but Lenore Sellers left the game in the second quarter.
Right. So it's like they have. Like resume wise, like beating Virginia Tech, beating South Carolina on the road at night, like in a vacuum, those are good wins, but it's still orders of magnitude different from going into Tuscaloosa against, a full strength Alabama team. So we have two kind of conflicting computer outputs for this one. SP Plus has this one very close. It has Bama only winning by 2. So that's the Bill C recipe. FEI has this one a little bit more in line with what I think we're thinking here, where Bama wins by 12, 35-23.
Yeah, I like that prediction much more. And then the other thing, too, that we haven't mentioned, Vanderbilt's defense hasn't seen anything like this Ty Simpson offense, like anything close. And if Ty Simpson looks the way he did against Georgia on the road, I think he's going to have a pretty good weekend against Vanderbilt at home here. Like, I think Ryan Grubb's going to have some big-time plays drawn up. I think Simpson's going to have a monster day. The one concern I do have with Alabama, though, as they try to pull this away, is like it'd be a great weekend for Alabama's pass rush to finally show up. They still have not put much out on the stat sheet. They have to impact Pavia somehow, and it would be big. If Alabama's pass rush gets going and we finally see them show up, like this could get really ugly.
Yeah, I think so. I think I stopped short on it getting really ugly just because I do think Pavia is that guy where, like, even if they're down, like, he's not going to stop fighting. But I think ultimately, like, Bama wins this game by 2 touchdowns.
I like that. Yep, I'm going Bama too. That's going to be on my card, minus 10.5. As soon as I saw that number creep that low, I'm like, yeah, let's fade the public here and roll with the tide. All right, let's dive into Miami and Florida State. The Battle of the Sunshine State. Miami will head up to Tallahassee this weekend. I see this line's as low as 3.5 now in some spots. We talked a little bit on Monday's show when we were recapping and breaking down what happened in Week 5 that maybe Florida State might be a little bit more dangerous coming off of that loss, the way they lost to Virginia on Friday night. Going in to play Miami here, welcoming them up to Doak Campbell. Miami's off of a bye. This is like their one game in like a 21-day stretch or something like that, which is just nuts. Florida State does have that extra night of rest, but they are coming off that loss in double overtime. And John, as I size these two teams up, I'm kind of asking myself that, like, a similar question is, like, how does Florida State handle this Miami front? Like, how are they going to block Ruben Bain? Like, Gus Malzahn, we know he loves to run the quarterback. This feels like a kind of game where Tommy Castellanos is going to be running for his life all 60 minutes.
Yeah, I'm concerned about that for Florida State. I think earlier in the week I was a little bit more more gung ho on Vandy and I was more gung ho on Florida State. But now as we stand here on Thursday, I'm a little bit more leaning towards the favorites in this particular matchup. I'm like almost a little bit worried about the rust factor for Miami relative to Florida State, like really wanting to get the stink off of their loss at Virginia last Friday night. But I do think ultimately, like, you look at this Miami team, a decent amount of people have them as the number one team in the country right now, with their resume, the way that they are loaded on both sides of the trenches. You get Carson Beck time to throw, and those receivers become all the more dangerous, and they're already super talented in their own right. So yeah, I'm kind of thinking that Miami is able to do this and to cover. If you'll allow me a moment, I do have some fun facts about this rivalry.
Hit it.
Let's see. So they've played 69 times. Nice.
Nice.
Miami leads this one 36-33 all time. This is the first time that they've both been ranked while matching up since 2016. Florida State won that one. I know it's been a minute here since they've both been truly relevant. A lot of Nikosi Perry and DeAndre Francois stuff since then. Let's see, 15 times they've met as ranked opponents. 6 of those times have come when they were both top 5. Looking at their Wikipedia, that they have certain games that are almost like in chapter form. There are 4 games that are titled wide right.
Really?
So it's coming down to the final play of the game, final kick of the game, sailing wide right 4 times. There was one that sailed wide left, and then in 2005 there was something called the Miami Muff, and I think it was I had to go on incognito to read the rest of the article.
Good point. Maybe turn off your Wi-Fi and read it from like the whatever it is.
Xfinity doesn't need to know about my readings.
About the Miami Muff game from 2005. You never know where that might take you. But as I look a little more into this game here, like another question I have is Florida State going to be able to get pressure on Carson Beck? Carson Beck is the least pressured quarterback in the FBS. It's like 16% of the time right now. Like the average right now across the country is a little over 20. Beck's getting pressured like 16% of the time. He's had plenty of time to throw. And then in Florida State's defense too, like they just allowed Virginia to run like crazy with like their backup offensive line. They were missing several offensive line starters. Now you take on a Miami team that has probably the best offensive line in the country and also has Mark Fletcher, who we know he can get going too. Like I have concerns of how Florida State's going to get stops in this game.
Right. It's gonna, everything on paper I think points us in Miami's direction. And crazy rivalry game. We've seen some savage like Twitter back and forth between these two fan bases. It's been wild to see the stops that they're pulling out and everything. But Florida State, like I'm not completely writing them off. This is the type of setup where crazy things can happen. It is in Tallahassee, everything like that. But I think ultimately this ends up being Miami's game. SP Plus has Miami winning this one by a field goal, 30-27. FEI has Miami winning by a touchdown, 31-24. I'm not sure if just because I've waffled a little bit which side I'm taking here, but I think I would be interested in the over. But I don't know if this one's making the card. This is a little bit too close to call for me.
That's right where I'm going to. It would be the over if I'm going to play something here in this game because, I don't know, I feel like this is going to come down to like a 1 score, and I do think Florida State's going to be able to move the ball and get some yards. I trust Gus Malzahn's going to be able to draw up some plays here and maybe limit the impact that Ruben Bain has in this game. But ultimately, I do think Miami's defense will be able to get off the field one more time compared to Florida State, if that makes sense. And I do think late in the game, Miami's going to be able to get that stop where I don't think Florida State's going to be able to. I do think we see points here. And yeah, that's why I'm going with the over as well. I think Miami wins, but I'm not laying 4.5, 5.5 here. This could very well be a field goal game.
Yeah, too much of a live wire is Florida State, and yeah, them coming off the loss, I stand by that, making them a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more keyed up in this one, kind of playing the giant slayer role and wanting to get even in this matchup. I think Miami kind of smoked them last year, so gonna be a really good game. I think that that this is worthy of game day. This is worthy of being that like primetime slot on Saturday night. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And as we were talking about the other day too, guys, if you think Miami's going to like run away with the ACC, which I'm starting to feel that way, and John, it kind of sounds like you are too, go grab them now. Because it's at minus 105, I think is the best price. Like if they beat Florida State Saturday night, that's probably going to double. Probably going to be like minus 200 or something like that. With all due respect to Georgia Tech and Louisville and those kind of teams, like you're going to see some serious separation, I think, on the odds board with Miami after this game if they win. Yeah,
this is the big yardstick. This is the biggest game I think that Miami has left in conference play.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair enough. All right, so there's a ton of great games going on Saturday, a couple Friday night as always too. Let's just kind of bounce around a little bit here, give some like little quick hit thoughts and stuff like that. And let's start with your Georgia Bulldogs, who are a 20.5-point favorite at home against Kentucky. John, the question I'm asking and the question I want to ask you is, how do the Dogs bounce back?
I think that they're going to respond. I think you don't want to be the team that has to play Georgia after last week. I think Kentucky is really kind of circling the drain as a football program right now. I feel bad about it. I think that Mark Stoops has done a tremendous job. It's one of those hard jobs where like you're so clearly second fiddle to the basketball team that like
Right.
if getting to bowl eligibility is like a thank you. We're not in a total embarrassment, but I know that Kentucky played Georgia tough last year, and traditionally they do play Georgia tough when it's in Lexington.
Right.
In Athens it tends to be a bit of a different story. I think Georgia won by like 38 points a couple years ago. That was sort of a big inflection point of Georgia's 2023 season. They kind of started slow that year. Beck went completely ballistic in that game. I could see Georgia kind of doing a bloodletting here against Kentucky, kind of in a similar way as like I feel really bad for UCLA because they have to play against Penn State this weekend, and
Yeah.
Franklin's gonna want to kind of open it up on old UCLA. So I think similar stuff there. Obviously, the spread's a lot different in that Penn State game, but 20 and a half, I think that I have a hard time seeing, even with how bad Georgia's defense has been, or at least like not impressive Georgia's defense has been, I have a hard time seeing Kentucky like getting to 20 in this game, and I have a hard time seeing their defense hold Georgia to under 35 points.
So a couple trends with this game. Georgia has won 15 in a row in this matchup, but Kentucky's actually 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings. I remember a couple years ago, I think Kentucky was it Kentucky, or am I thinking of the South Carolina game when they were leading at half and then Georgia like eventually turned it on in the second half and pulled away?
Well, last year, like it took basically till the very end for
Right.
Georgia to get that one, and then back in 2022, it was also kind of like one of Georgia's more uncomfortable games that season during their national title run. So they have a way of mucking it up, but I kind of see this one a little bit more like that 2023 game where Georgia just kind of like takes out its frustrations and flexes its offensive muscle a little bit here.
Kind of just like picking on little brother, grab him in the headlock, give him the noogie, and like feel better about yourself, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
One other note: the under is actually 5-1 in the last 6 meetings between these two teams.
That
as
checks
well.
out. That checks out. And the one in both of those cases was the 2023 game where they won by 38 and everything like that. It was like 51 to something. 51 to 13, maybe. I'm not. Don't ask me to do math on the fly, but yeah, I see.
I see the wheels turning up
And
there.
they're poorly greased.
Get some more coffee, my man. Get some more coffee. Let's head over to the ACC. Virginia at Louisville. Interesting. Virginia's now ranked after knocking off FSU a week ago. They head over to Louisville, who's undefeated but not ranked, surprisingly. This is a really interesting spot here. Like, this just, to me, John, Louisville's favored by 6.5. The total here is 61.5. This just feels like your classic letdown game for Virginia. After you have that huge emotional win a week ago, now you go on the road, you take on another conference rival, one who is maybe trying to, has some loftier goals and expectations of maybe flirting for a chance to get to that ACC championship game. This, like, it feels like a letdown spot for the Hoos.
I think so too. Like their pace can be really difficult for other teams to contend with. I think they're like top 5 in plays per game run. Chandler Morris is obviously like really kind of had this fascinating career. He's like a big time recruit at like TC or he was somewhere in maybe Oklahoma, and then he went to TCU, kind of flamed out there. Went to North Texas, kind of turned things around, and he's a very seasoned quarterback, and obviously they had the huge win last week, but I think that reflexively you're just going to kind of feel like, oh, Virginia just beat Florida State, like that. Why wouldn't they be able to hang with an unranked Louisville team? But I think Louisville at home, giving less than a touchdown, I think it's a great spot for the Cards here. I could see UVA kind of running themselves into a bunch of 3 and outs, and Louisville's defense is a top 25 unit in both FEI and SP plus. So I think that it's going to gum up the works a little bit on Virginia's offense, and I still really like this Louisville offense in its own right. Chris Bell, Miller Moss. We're still kind of waiting to have that Isaac Brown big game, but so the run hasn't been quite as bankable as we're expecting. But ultimately, when you're getting the home team in this one, and Virginia coming off such a big emotional win, I got to go with the Cards here.
So a couple interesting little betting trends with this one. So this will be the 12th meeting between these two teams since Louisville moved to the ACC a little over a decade ago. Virginia's actually 8-3 in the 11 against the spread, not straight up, in the last 11 meetings. And also, it's also 8-3 to the under between these two schools, and the total here pretty high at 61.5. And you've been hyping up this Louisville defense that could very well be another under here on this one.
Yeah, I think that this one ends closer into like the high 50s. So I like the under in this spot, and I like Louisville in this spot.
All right, very good. Yeah, I would lean Louisville as well. Like I said, it's your classic one. It's your classic letdown game, and two, it's a huge trend in the betting community that like home team against a ranked opponent or something like unranked home team against ranked road opponent, something like that, to usually back that team. But yeah, I like Louisville as well. All right, moving on. Let's head back to the SEC. Mississippi State playing their first road game since the month of August. Back in week 1, they head to College Station to take on Texas A&M. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, John. This line is just stayed. It has been like in concrete at 14.5 in favor of the Aggies at home here. This is a really interesting matchup and a great measuring stick to see if Mississippi State is legit and they really are building something down there, because if they can go in to College Station and then hang around, kind of like the way Auburn did a week ago, I think that says a lot about what Jeff Lebby's building there. And we talked about it, that game against Tennessee. Yes, the Vols ultimately won in overtime, but it kind of feels like Mississippi State just gave them that game on a silver platter, allowing 2 defensive touchdowns in that one.
Exactly. So, now it's ratcheted up with it being in Kyle Field, so they haven't been in a hostile environment like that. No shade at Southern Miss, but I think that's a little bit of a different environment than 100,000 plus people at Kyle Field at night. So that's going to be, a bit of a proving ground, of course, but I'm kind of scared of how much I like Miss State against this number. Like usually I don't feel that good about anything, but 14.5, I like this A&M team, but I think that against real defenses, they can get a little bit stuck in the mud offensively. Notre Dame game notwithstanding, I think that they hit a lot of just kind of crazy shot plays that ended up bouncing in their favor. But I think conventionally, it's an offense that can run a little bit hot, run a little bit cold. So you're getting Miss State at more than 2 touchdowns right now, 14 in the hook. I think Miss State makes this, a pretty close game all the way to the end. I think that they lose more by like a touchdown in this spot. I'm not completely writing off the possibility of an upset. I do think A&M comes out on top, but ultimately, and if there is like a kind of an upset watch of this weekend, this might be it. But I think ultimately, at the very least, the Bulldogs make this one close.
Yeah, I know. Todd Furman, who's one of the best in the gambling space, always tweets out every Saturday morning who is the favorite of 7 or more that is most likely to go down, or something like that. Something along those lines. Like Texas A&M would be right on there. College Game Day loves to do that dog of the week, right, where you take as many points and try to keep, and you get like points and stuff like that for covering and then outright wins and stuff like that. Like I think Mississippi State is the team to pick this week going in there. Both these teams I think have a bye coming up next week too. Like you're going to push your chips in here, and yeah, I want to see if Jeff Lebby really is building something down there in Starkville.
I'm willing to believe that he is.
Fair enough. All right, one more game I want to get to. Boise State goes to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. This was a game that preseason, John, definitely was a little interesting. They're like, oh, okay, let's see what Boise State can do here. Coming off that playoff berth, Notre Dame just goes to the national title game. Now as we get here, like Boise State, I know they've looked much better since that week 1 performance against South Florida when they lost down there. But like, I said it on Monday, coming out of week 5, that Notre Dame has to be all gas, no brakes, gas pedal to the floor, and that's what I expect to continue this week against Boise State. I don't think Boise State's defense is going to be able to stop the Irish. CJ Carr, I think we're going to keep seeing the ascension of him into that higher echelon of some of these quarterbacks this year. I am so high on this kid. And then the 2 running backs, Notre Dame finally getting them the football. The Irish have scored 40 or more points in 3 straight games. I think that continues as well. I was about to give out Notre Dame team total, but it's sitting at 41.5, and that is just silly. I think, at this point. But it would not shock me one bit if Notre Dame wins this game like 25-20, and they end up covering the number, which is sitting at 20.5 here as well. So even the books are buying back in on the Irish at this point.
Yeah, the Irish offense, I think, is one of the most complete and scary units in the country right now. I think that just this introduction of CJ Carr and his really kind of rapid maturation has been insanely impressive. You got a guy in Malachi Fields who's just been like a total big play threat. Faison, I love watching him play. Greathouse is fun too. And then you get Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love going, you as a defense having to game plan to stop all of that. Whereas like last year is like, well, you can try to stop the run. Like you try as best as you can to stop the run, and maybe something can happen. But like now, it's a real damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you load up to stop one thing, that Notre Dame is able to punish you coming out the other end. So I did notice that 41.5 team total. I know for anyone's college football DFS purposes, that Notre Dame is going to be fun to use this weekend. I'm not betting this one, but I'm more inclined to say that Notre Dame kind of beats Boise like a drum here.
Yeah, I agree with you. I hope so. It would make me very, very sad if they don't, and this game is even close at all on Saturday afternoon. I think this is another one where I think the talent gap, I think, is going to really just shine here. And hopefully I'm not talking about Chris Ash on Monday when we do our recap show for week 6. All right, let's get to our betting cards. So we went 8-8 last week. We're still a little under 500 for the season. Something's just been a little off, John. So I was thinking we need some good juju. So I was thinking that we kind of shift our order here, and I'll go first this week.
Yes, love it.
If you don't mind, let's kind of switch things up. So we have already given you out 3 plays. We gave you the under in Navy and Air Force at 49.5. You can find a better number out there now if you have not played that. We also gave you Maryland plus 5.5. I believe there's a better number right now. Wake Forest plus 6.5 is still out there on most boards at the moment here. But anyways, getting to my card, week 6, best bets. Here we go. Like I said, Navy, Air Force, under 49.5. Moving on, we're going to go App State minus 1.5 at home, taking on Oregon State, who is just absolutely awful. And they also have to travel across the country. So give me App State. Bama minus 10.5. I'm laying it. Yeah, sorry. Diego Pavia, nice story. Tide roll on Saturday. Going to lay the 6.5 with Texas on the road. I don't know how Florida's going to score to keep this up. So I think Texas is going to figure something out on offense, and they're going to be able to run away and really have a nice cushion of separation here in this game. Moving on, we'll go UCF plus 5.5, taking on Kansas at home. I like Scott Frost at home. He did not do nice things for us last week on the road as Kansas State started to figure some stuff out, but he can make it up to us this week. We'll go over 53.5 in Miami and Florida State. I do think both offenses are going to be able to move the ball. Ultimately, I think Miami gets a stop to end this one, but I like Miami to win this game like 31-28 or something like that. So give me the over. We'll take Cal plus 3 at home, taking on Duke. Duke has to go across the country, taking on a Cal team that looked much better last week against BC. Now they're home. They're getting a field goal. Give me the home dog. And then finally, Texas Tech team total over 31.5 at plus money, plus 102 against Houston. Houston's been a nice story, but I don't think they can slow down this offense, and Morton is going to play on Saturday.
Yeah, Houston's just really not all that good, unfortunately. So I think this is a great spot for a rested Texas Tech team. So digging that card there on mine. We've starting things out. We've got Pitt giving 5.5 against Boston College. Pitt at home in that spot. You can get the 5.5 over at FanDuel. I also like Bama minus 10.5 against Vanderbilt, and I also like UCF. I see that number has moved around a little bit, so 5.5, I will take that. I think it was like 3.5 earlier this week, but I do like UCF in that spot with Kansas having to travel. Give me Miss State getting that 14.5. I do like that a decent bit. And give me James Madison, who's also been really money against the spread thus far this year. They're giving a lot, and it's on the road here in my backyard against Georgia State, but JMU minus 19.5. I think the Dukes roll by over 3 touchdowns.
All right, very good. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, the UCF one, I just don't think Kansas can stop anybody.
Nope.
That's like my big thing too. And yeah, UCF's been much better at home. All right, so there's one more game here, John, that I have put on my card, crossed out, put back on, and crossed out again. And now I just circled it because I got to talk about it because I just cannot figure it out. It's this Iowa State-Cincinnati game.
Oh.
This is a really interesting spot here. Cincinnati favored by 1.5 at home against Iowa State, who's undefeated. This Iowa State offense, I think, is better than people are giving them credit for. On defense, they did just lose their top 2 cornerbacks last week, both to ACL tears, which I think that's the reason why Cincinnati's favored. Cincinnati's offense has been great. They've been averaging close to 40 points per game. But I just think Iowa State's a better team all around. I know they're going to be missing some pieces there in the secondary, but I don't know. Iowa State at plus money, it speaks to me.
And it should. It should. I definitely understand that. This is one of those lines that like surprises you to the point where it's like, well, I can't quite figure out why exactly it is where it is, so I'm going to trust the number here. So I am going to go with Cincinnati at home. I really like Brandon Sorsby. I know that these two teams have played a couple times since he joined the Big 12, and it's usually been a pretty fun game. But I like the fact that this is at home in Cincinnati, really multiple running the ball. I think Tawi Walker has really kind of started to come on strong for out of that backfield. Again, I mentioned Sorsby. I think we haven't really seen like the big Joe Royer game just yet, but I think he's one of the most talented tight ends in college football. If they can get him unlocked, I will say that Iowa State, I gotta like their depth as far as like the options that Becht has to throw to. Like they can kind of get something out of everybody, but they don't have that one like real alpha that
Right.
really like puts a scare into you necessarily. So I think that the overall kind of lack of firepower for Iowa State is kind of what draws me a little bit more towards Cincy in this one.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's fair. I think I'm going to leave it off the card. It was something that I circled earlier in the week, but I get between the injury situation and what you just said, I think I'll leave it off, even though it would not surprise me one bit if Iowa State wins this game. That's all I'm going to say.
This one I'm just going to sit back and enjoy because it's really hard to get like a strong lean one way or the other in this one. Like it could go very wide range of ways, but ultimately, if I had to, give me the Bearcats.
All right, very good. Anything else here that we didn't get to looking at this slate? I mean, there's so many different ways you can go. We didn't really touch on Wisconsin and Michigan. Michigan's a huge favorite, 17.5, but the total's only sitting at 43. Justice Haynes has been awesome. I mean, Wisconsin does have a pretty good run defense, but like, I don't know if they're going to be able to stop Michigan.
Yeah, I think ultimately like there's just an onslaught. Like they give the good effort in the first half, but there's no scoring on Wisconsin's offensive side, and ultimately like second half, like we see Justice Haynes have that big breakaway run, kind of the backbreaker, and Michigan ends up rolling in that one. Clemson, North Carolina is also interesting. It's like we kind of thought that the fire and brimstone would come against Syracuse, and obviously it did not with this Clemson team, but you're only 14-point favorites against this North Carolina team. Like it's almost embarrassing if you're Clemson,
Yeah, and North Carolina is in a similar scheduling spot like Miami. Like this is their one game in like a 20-day stretch too. So a lot of people giving Belichick it pains me to say it, but the old man does not have his fastball anymore like he used to. Like this is not the NFL with professional athletes. Like the bye, I don't think it does much for him being able to slow down this Clemson offense. Not that it's even that hard to slow down the Clemson offense right now at this point. So like I'm staying away like from that game. I can't trust that North Carolina offense one bit. But yeah, it's sad. I don't want to talk about Clemson because the robots, the software that we use, a little behind the scenes, the software that we use to record this show is going to clip this, and it just makes me mad because like I'm trying to move past Clemson. Like they're in my past. Like they can't hurt me. Okay, that ticket is lit on fire. I know I gave them out as a national championship pick, but they're gone. I've moved on. I'm on to bigger and better things. That's all I'm going to say.
The computer just wants to crop them up in your like photo memories or something. It's like no, show this less.
It's like those Snapchat memories that you get when you open like on this day from 4 years ago and you see like an X like, oh, I haven't deleted that yet.
Right.
Oh, there we go. That's what that is. That's what Clemson is to me at this point.
Yeah. So algorithm, if you're listening to us, please no more Clemson. And then I'm standing by my Maryland plus 6.5, and
Good.
again, I don't think that it's completely unreasonable to think that Maryland can win that game outright.
Yeah, I love that. Stick by it. Picks with conviction. Very good. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us for this week. If you've made it this far, you watched the entire show, please make sure and check that you're subscribed. Okay? Hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, or that like button. Leave us a review. Tell your friends that are looking for some more college football content as we try to build this thing. But anyways, for John, I'm Dan. Enjoy the football this week. It's going to be another glorious weekend of college football.